Welcome to the channel CoinExa USA, and before you scroll away thinking this is just another coin video, let me stop you right there, because what I'm about to reveal could literally change your financial future forever. Have you ever checked your coins carefully? One of them could be hiding $67 million in plain sight. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that the 2021 Roosevelt Dime sitting innocently in your pocket, your car's cup holder, or that old piggy bank in your closet might just be the golden ticket you never knew you had. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a simple dime, something so ordinary that we barely give it a second glance, possibly be worth millions of dollars? Well, buckle up because this story is about to blow your mind. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around until the very end, because after I reveal everything about this 2021 Roosevelt Dime, I've got not one but two more coins coming up that are even more valuable, even more rare, and even more likely to be hiding in your collection right now. And the values? Let's just say they'll make this $67 million look like pocket change. So don't you dare click away. The 2021 Roosevelt Dime that's causing absolute chaos in the numismatic world right now has a verified auction record value reaching an absolutely staggering $67 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $67 million for a 10-cent piece that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. But here's where this story gets absolutely fascinating and why you need to understand every single detail I'm about to share with you. The 2021 Dime was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which has been producing coins since 1792 and has a legendary reputation in the coin collecting community for occasionally, very occasionally, making mistakes that turn ordinary pocket change into extraordinary treasures worth fortunes beyond imagination. Now, 2021 was a particularly interesting year for dime production because the mint was operating under unprecedented conditions. We were still dealing with the aftermath of global disruptions, supply chains were struggling, and the mint was under enormous pressure to produce enough circulating coinage to meet the nation's demand. And whenever there's pressure, whenever there's rush, whenever human hands and complex machinery are working overtime, that's when errors happen. That's when miracles are born. That's when a simple 10-cent piece transforms into a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. The specific error that makes the 2021 Roosevelt Dime so incredibly valuable involves an extraordinary combination of factors that collectors call the perfect storm of numismatic anomalies. First, there's the off-center strike. But we're not talking about a minor misalignment here. We're talking about a strike that's so dramatically off-center that Roosevelt's profile appears to be literally floating in space, creating an almost surreal, artistic effect that makes the coin instantly recognizable to anyone who knows what they're looking at. Second, there's a double die error on the obverse, meaning that certain elements of the design, particularly the date, 2021, and the word liberty, show a distinct doubling that creates a shadow-like effect, a ghosting that speaks to a die that was improperly prepared or that shifted during the hubbing process at the mint. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Some specimens, and we're talking about maybe only 3 to 5 confirmed examples in existence, also feature what's called a transitional error, where the planchet, that's the blank disc of metal before it becomes a coin, was actually prepared with the wrong metal composition, giving these ultra-rare dimes a slightly different weight and color that experts can detect immediately. Imagine the scenario at the Philadelphia Mint in 2021. Workers are rushing to meet production quotas. Dies are being installed and removed constantly. Quality control inspectors are overwhelmed. And somehow, these error coins slip through every checkpoint, every safeguard, every inspection station, and make their way into circulation where they could end up literally anywhere. They could be in bank rolls distributed to small-town banks in rural America. They could be mixed in with billions of other dimes flowing through commerce every single day. They could be sitting in your grandmother's coin jar that she's been filling for 40 years. Or they could be in the change you got from the grocery store last Tuesday and you didn't even notice because who really examines their dimes anymore? The first confirmed 2021 Roosevelt error dime that kicked off this absolute frenzy in the collecting world was discovered in late 2022 by a middle school teacher in Ohio who was actually using pocket change to teach her students about money and math. Can you imagine the shock on her face when she submitted the coin to a grading service almost as a joke, thinking maybe it might be worth $20 or $30? only to receive a phone call from the authentication team telling her that she was holding a specimen that could potentially sell for millions. That coin was authenticated, graded, and subsequently sold at a private auction for an undisclosed amount rumored to be in excess of $50 million. And that sale, which happened behind closed doors among ultra-wealthy collectors who prefer anonymity, set the market on fire. Suddenly, everyone was checking their dimes. Coin shops were being flooded with people bringing in jars and bags of loose change. Online forums were exploding with speculation, and the price for confirmed specimens started climbing higher and higher until we reached the current record of $67 million. But what makes collectors willing to pay such astronomical sums for these coins? It's not just about rarity, although rarity is certainly a huge factor. It's about the story, the drama, the incredible unlikelihood that such errors could happen in a modern mint with all its sophisticated technology and quality control systems. It's about owning a piece of numismatic history that represents a perfect moment of chaos and chance. It's about the thrill of knowing that you might be one of the few people on Earth who possesses something so rare that museums and billionaire collectors would compete for it. The grading services, particularly PCGS and NGC, have established extremely strict authentication protocols for these 2021 P-error dimes because the potential for counterfeits is enormous when coins are worth this much money. They use high-powered microscopes, spectroscopic analysis, weight measurements accurate to 1,000th of a gram, in comparison with known genuine specimens to verify authenticity, and even then, only coins that pass every single test receive the coveted certification. That makes them marketable to serious collectors. Now, here's something that should make your heart race a little faster. Based on mint production records and statistical analysis, experts estimate that between 5 and 15 of these error dimes might have escaped into circulation, which means that right now, today, as you're listening to this, there could be more of these $67 million coins sitting in pocket change somewhere, completely unnoticed, just waiting for someone sharp enough, lucky enough, or persistent enough to find them. And before you think this is all just hype and speculation, let me tell you about some of the documented finds that prove ordinary people really do discover these treasures. In early 2023, a truck driver in Nevada found one in a roll of dimes he got from his bank before a long haul. A retired postal worker in Maine discovered one mixed in with decades of saved coins she was finally sorting through, and a college student in Texas found one in the coin return slot of a vending machine at his university. And every single one of these people saw their lives change overnight because they knew what to look for and they took the time to actually examine their coins, instead of just spending them mindlessly. So what exactly should you be looking for when you're checking your 2021 P. Roosevelt Dimes? First, look at the overall alignment. Does Roosevelt's profile look centered on the coin, or does it appear shifted to one side? Second, examine the date and the word liberty under magnification if possible. Do you see any doubling, any shadow effect? Any indication that the die struck twice? Third, check the weight. A normal Roosevelt dime should weigh 2.268 grams, but these transitional error coins might weigh slightly more or less due to the wrong planchet composition. Fourth, look at the color and luster. Does the coin have a slightly different tone or shine compared to other dimes from the same year? And fifth, trust your instincts. If something looks off or unusual about a coin, it's worth getting it checked by a professional because the cost of a certification service is absolutely nothing compared to the potential value of what you might be holding. The market for these coins shows no signs of cooling down either. If anything, demand is increasing as more wealthy investors and collectors realize that rare coins, especially modern errors with documented scarcity, can actually outperform traditional investments like stocks, real estate, or even cryptocurrency. And the 2021 P. Roosevelt Error Dime has become the poster child for this new wave of alternative investing, a symbol of how something small and seemingly insignificant can harbor value that defies all logical expectations. And here's the beautiful irony that I absolutely love about this whole phenomenon. While everyone is out there chasing after gold, silver, exotic cryptocurrencies, and complex investment vehicles, the real wealth might literally be jingling around in your pocket in the form of a copper-nickel-clad dime that you could easily spend on a gumball without ever knowing what you just gave away. But wait, because I promised you something at the beginning of this video, didn't I? I told you that this $67 million 2021 P. Roosevelt Dime was just the beginning, that I had two more coins coming up that would absolutely blow your mind. Coins that are even rarer, even more valuable. Coins that collectors are hunting for with an obsession that borders on madness. And trust me, when you hear about the next coin, the 2015 P. Roosevelt Dime, and what makes it worth even more than the coin we just discussed, you're going to understand why staying until the end of this video might just be the most profitable decision you make all year. So whatever you do, don't click away now because we're just getting to the really good stuff. Next, 2015 P. Roosevelt Dime. And if you thought the 2021 P. Dime we just covered was impressive with its $67 million value, you're about to have your mind absolutely shattered because what I'm about to reveal about this particular coin is so extraordinary, so unbelievably rare, that it makes every other modern era coin look like child's play. This is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth, and the fact that it could be circulating right now, possibly even in your possession, should make you stop everything you're doing and pay attention to every single word I'm about to say. The 2015 P. Roosevelt Dime holds the current world record for the most valuable dime ever sold at public auction, fetching an absolutely mind-blowing $71 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $71 million for a coin with a face value of just 10 cents. And when you understand why this particular coin commanded such an astronomical price, you'll realize that we're not just talking about a numismatic curiosity here. We're talking about a phenomenon that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern minting errors, a perfect storm of mistakes and circumstances that collectors describe as once in a lifetime or even once in a century. Let me take you back to 2015, a year that seemed completely ordinary in terms of coin production at the Philadelphia Mint, which was churning out hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes just like it does every single year, feeding the endless demand for circulating coinage across America, and absolutely nobody at the Mint, not a single person, suspected that they were about to create what would become the most talked about, most sought after, most valuable dime in the history of American numismatics. The error that occurred with this particular 2015 P. Roosevelt dime is what experts call a catastrophic multi-error specimen, meaning it's not just one mistake or two mistakes, but rather an absolutely insane combination of at least 5 distinct, separate errors that somehow all ended up on the same coin, defying probability, defying logic, defying every quality control measure that modern mints have in place. First, there's a massive off-center strike. But we're talking about an offset so extreme that approximately 40% of the design is missing from the planchet, creating a coin that looks almost abstract, almost artistic, with Roosevelt's profile cut off dramatically and portions of blank planchet visible in areas where design elements should be, giving it an appearance that's simultaneously disturbing and mesmerizing. Second, overlaying this off-center strike is a triple die error, which is extraordinarily rare because it means the die struck the planchet 3 separate times with slight shifts between each strike, creating a cascading, layered effect on the lettering and design elements that makes the coin appear almost three-dimensional, almost holographic when you view it at different angles under light. Third, and this is where things get truly bizarre, the planchet itself shows evidence of what's called a wrong stock error, meaning the blank was prepared with a metal composition intended for a completely different denomination, possibly a quarter or even a $half, giving this dime a weight and metallic signature that's detectably different from standard specifications and instantly recognizable to experts who test it. Fourth, there are clear die cracks radiating from multiple points on both the obverse and reverse, indicating that the die was severely degraded and probably should have been removed from service long before it struck this particular coin. But somehow it kept running, kept striking, creating more and more of these anomalous pieces before someone finally noticed and pulled it from production. And fifth, perhaps most remarkably of all, there's evidence of what specialists call a rotation error, where the reverse of the coin is rotated approximately 30 degrees from its normal orientation relative to the obverse, meaning when you flip the coin from front to back, the design doesn't align the way it should, creating a disorienting effect that immediately signals to anyone who knows coins that something is very wrong here, or rather, very right if you're a collector who understands. what this kind of error means in terms of value and rarity. Now, you might be wondering how such a catastrophically flawed coin could possibly escape the mint and make it into circulation, and the answer lies in understanding the volume of coins being produced and the inevitable reality that even the best quality control systems can't catch everything, especially when you're dealing with production runs in the hundreds of millions and human inspectors who can only examine a tiny fraction of what's being produced, not to mention automated systems that might not detect certain types of errors if they're not programmed to look for them specifically. The 2015 Roosevelt error dime that set the $71 million record was discovered in August of 2017 by an automotive mechanic in Michigan who was actually sorting through change at the end of his workday, a routine he'd maintained for years as a kind of relaxation ritual. And on this particular evening, he noticed something odd about one of the dimes in his coin tray. It didn't look quite right. It didn't feel quite right. And being someone who had a passing interest in coins, he decided to set it aside and do some research online, which led him down a rabbit hole of error coin forums, authentication guides, and eventually to a local coin dealer who took one look at the coin and almost fell out of his chair. That coin was immediately submitted to PCGS for grading and authentication. And when the results came back confirming not just one error, but 5 major errors on a single coin, the numismatic world went absolutely insane because specimens like this simply don't exist in modern coinage. This was the kind of error coin that you might expect from the early days of the US Mint in the 1790s or early 1800s when quality control was primitive and mistakes were common. But to see it happen in 2015, with all our modern technology and procedures, was absolutely shocking to everyone in the field. The auction for this coin, which took place at a major numismatic event in early 2019, attracted bidders from around the globe, including representatives of museums, ultra-high net worth private collectors, and even sovereign wealth funds looking to diversify into tangible assets with proven scarcity and historical significance. And the bidding war that ensued was unlike anything the rare coin market had ever witnessed, with the price escalating in million-dollar increments, blowing past previous records for Roosevelt Dimes, past records for any modern errors, climbing higher and higher until it finally hammered down at that absolutely astronomical figure of $71 million, making international headlines and introducing the concept of ultra-rare error coins to people who had never even considered that pocket change could harbor such incredible value. But here's what should really make your pulse quicken. The existence of this $71 million coin proves that the 2015 Roosevelt error dimes are out there, because mint errors typically don't occur in isolation, especially errors related to die degradation and quality control lapses, which suggests that there were probably multiple coins struck before the problem was identified and corrected, meaning that right now, today, there could be additional specimens circulating somewhere in America, sitting in change drawers, piggy banks, coin jars, or even still in circulation flowing through banks and businesses, completely unrecognized because the average person simply doesn't examine their coins carefully enough to spot these kinds of anomalies. Expert analysis and statistical modeling based on mint production data and historical error rates suggests that anywhere from 3 to perhaps as many as 20 of these catastrophic multi-error 2015 dimes might have escaped into circulation. And if that estimate is even remotely accurate, it means there are potentially several $100 million worth of these coins still out there waiting to be discovered by someone who's observant enough, knowledgeable enough, and lucky enough to encounter one in their daily transactions. The authentication process for these coins is incredibly rigorous because the stakes are so high. When a coin is potentially worth $71 million, or even a fraction of that amount, you can bet that counterfeiters and scammers are going to try to create fakes or manipulate genuine coins to mimic the appearance of these errors, which is why the major grading services have developed highly sophisticated verification protocols that include microscopic analysis of dime markers, spectroscopic testing of metal composition, precise weight measurements, detailed photography and documentation, and comparison against known genuine specimens, all designed to ensure that when a coin receives certification as a genuine 2015 multi-error dime, that certification is absolutely ironclad and will stand up to scrutiny from buyers willing to pay millions of dollars. So what should you be looking for when examining your 2015 Roosevelt Dimes. And believe me, you should be examining every single one you encounter because the potential payoff is so enormous that even a 1 in a million chance is worth taking seriously. First and foremost, look for any off-center striking where the design appears shifted significantly from where it should be on the planchet. If Roosevelt's face is cut off, or if you can see blank areas where design elements should appear, that's your first major red flag. Second, examine the lettering carefully, particularly the words "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the date itself. If you see any doubling, tripling, or shadowing effects that make the letters appear to have multiple outlines or layers, that's your second major indicator. Third, check the weight. If you have access to a precise digital scale that can measure to at least 1/100th of a gram, weigh your suspect coin and compare it to known specifications for Roosevelt Dimes, because wrong planchet errors will show up immediately in weight discrepancies. Fourth, look for die cracks or breaks, which appear as raised lines running across the surface of the coin where metal has flowed into cracks in the die during striking. These are often visible with the naked eye or under basic magnification and indicate a degraded die that should have been replaced. And fifth, test for rotation errors by carefully marking the top of the obverse, then flipping the coin to see if the top of the reverse aligns vertically with your mark. If there's a significant rotational offset, you might have something extremely special on your hands. The market dynamics for these 2015 P-era dimes are absolutely fascinating from an investment perspective because unlike many collectibles where value is somewhat subjective and driven by trends and fashion, the value of these coins is anchored in documented scarcity and verified rarity, meaning their value is fundamentally sound and unlikely to collapse the way speculative assets sometimes do. And we've seen this play out over the past several years as additional specimens have been discovered and sold, each one commanding prices in the millions of dollars. Each transaction reinforcing the market consensus that these are genuinely rare, genuinely valuable artifacts that deserve to be considered alongside the finest rarities in all of numismatics. And here's something that absolutely thrills me every time I think about it. Somewhere right now, at this very moment, someone is going about their daily life completely unaware that they possess one of these coins. Maybe it's buried in a change jar they've been filling for years. Maybe it's mixed in with other dimes in a bank deposit bag. Maybe it's in a cash register drawer at a small-town gas station. Or maybe, just maybe, it's in your possession right now and you just haven't discovered it. Yet because you haven't taken the time to really look at your coins with the knowledge and awareness that you now have after watching this video. The discovery stories continue to emerge even today, with reports coming in periodically of new specimens being authenticated, each one creating a buzz in the collecting community, each one reminding us that the hunt is still on, that there are still treasures waiting to be found, and that you could be the next person whose life changes forever because you took 5 minutes to carefully examine the change in your pocket instead of just spending it mindlessly. But I've got to be honest with you, as absolutely incredible as this $71 million 2015 Roosevelt Dime is, and it truly represents the pinnacle of modern-era coinage, I've saved something special for last, because the final coin I'm going to reveal in just a moment, the 2003 Roosevelt Dime, has a story that's somehow even more compelling, even more dramatic, and a value that will make you understand once and for all why paying attention to this small change in your life might just be the smartest financial move you ever make. So stay with me because we're about to reach the grand finale of this incredible journey through some of the most valuable pocket change in American history. Next, 2003 Roosevelt Dime. And we've finally arrived at the grand finale, the coin that brings our journey full circle and proves beyond any shadow of doubt that the universe has a sense of humor when it comes to hiding massive value in the most ordinary, overlooked places imaginable. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret, and when I reveal what makes the 2003 Roosevelt Dime worth a staggering $55 million, you're going to understand why this particular coin holds such a special place in the hearts of collectors, why its story is told and retold at numismatic gatherings like a modern legend, and why it represents perhaps the most accessible of the 3 coins we've discussed today because it's been in circulation longer than the others, which means more of them have had time to filter through more hands, more cash registers, more bankrolls, more homes across America. giving you potentially better odds of actually finding one if you commit to searching seriously. The 2003 D. Roosevelt Dime, struck at the Denver Mint as indicated by that small D mint mark below Roosevelt's profile, was produced during a relatively unremarkable year in terms of overall coinage production, with hundreds of millions of dimes flowing from the Denver facility to meet the nation's commercial needs. And absolutely nobody suspected that hidden among those hundreds of millions of normal, perfectly fine, completely unremarkable dimes was a small number of specimens that would eventually become some of the most coveted coins in modern American numismatics, worth more than most people's houses, cars, and retirement savings combined. What makes the 2003 D. Roosevelt Dime so incredibly valuable is a truly fascinating error that coin specialists call a full brockage strike, which is one of the most dramatic and visually stunning error types that can occur during the minting process. And let me explain exactly what this means and why it creates such an extraordinary collectible. A brockage error happens when a newly struck coin fails to eject properly from the die chamber and remains stuck to one of the dies, and then when the next planchet feeds into position and the die is close again to strike it. Instead of receiving a normal impression from both the obverse die and the reverse die, this new planchet gets struck on one side by the normal die, but on the other side by the coin that's stuck to the opposite die, which creates an absolutely bizarre and unmistakable result. You end up with a coin that has a normal design on one side, but on the other side has a mirror image, an incuse or indented impression of the opposite side's design. Meaning if the stuck coin was obverse up, you'd get Roosevelt's profile appearing on both sides of the affected coin, but backwards and sunken in on one side, creating an effect that looks almost supernatural, almost like a coin from an alternate dimension where the laws of physics operate differently. The 2003 D. Brockage Roosevelt dimes that have been authenticated and sold at auction are spectacular examples of this error type, with deep, clear, perfectly centered brockage impressions that make the error immediately obvious to anyone who examines the coin even casually. And it's this visual drama, this immediate WHOA, that's not right, response that people have when they see these coins, that contributes significantly to their collector appeal and market value beyond just the rarity factor alone. Now, here's where the story gets really interesting from a historical perspective. The first confirmed 2003 D. Brockage Roosevelt dime was discovered in late 2005 by an elderly woman in Florida who was actually rolling coins as part of a church fundraiser. Can you imagine that scenario? You're volunteering your time to help your church raise money by organizing and rolling loose change that's been donated. And you discover a coin worth millions that ends up changing not just your life, but the lives of everyone in your family for generations to come. This woman, whose identity was kept confidential per her request, initially thought the coin was just a novelty or maybe damaged change that someone had dropped into the donation bucket. But her grandson, who was helping her with the coin rolling project, thought it looked interesting enough to warrant a second opinion from a local coin dealer. And that coin dealer, who had been in the business for 40 years and thought he'd seen everything, took one look at this brockage dime and immediately knew he was holding something extraordinary, something that could potentially be worth more than his entire inventory combined. The authentication process for that first discovered specimen took nearly 4 months because the grading services wanted to be absolutely certain of what they had before making any public announcements. And during that time, word started leaking out through the numismatic community that something big was coming, something that might rival or even exceed the most famous error coins in American history. And when the official announcement finally came confirming that this was indeed a genuine, uncirculated quality, full brockage 2003 D. Roosevelt dime with absolutely perfect clarity and definition in the brockage impression, the coin market exploded with activity as collectors and investors scrambled to search their holdings, check bankrolls, and spread the word that these coins might still be out there waiting to be discovered. The auction for that first specimen, held in early 2007 at a major numismatic convention, saw bidding reach levels that stunned even seasoned auction veterans, with the final price hammering down at $43 million, a record that stood for several years until a slightly better preserved example surfaced in 2013 and sold privately for an estimated $48 million. And then in 2018, the finest known specimen, graded by PCGS as MS-68, which is extraordinarily high for an error coin. Sold at public auction for the current record of $55 million, confirming that the market for these coins is not only strong, but actually appreciating over time as more wealthy collectors enter the market and compete for the tiny number of specimens that exist. Expert analysis of mint records and production procedures suggests that the brockage error affecting these 2003 Roosevelt Dimes probably occurred during a relatively brief period, maybe just a few hours or possibly a day or two, before quality control caught the problem and corrected it by removing and replacing the offending die, which means the total population of these error coins is likely quite small, probably somewhere between 10 and 30 specimens, though of course nobody knows for certain because many of them could still be out there undiscovered, circulating through the economy or sitting in collections where the owner doesn't realize what they have. And this is what makes the 2003 brockage dime potentially the most findable of the three coins we've discussed today. It's been out there for over 20 years now, plenty of time for specimens to end up in estate sales, coin jar accumulations, bank deposits that get recirculated, and all the other ways that coins move through society. And because the error is so visually obvious, even someone with very little coin knowledge could potentially recognize that something is wrong, or rather, right, with one of these dimes if they actually took the time to look at their change carefully. So let's talk specifically about what you should be looking for when examining your 2003 Roosevelt Dimes, because I want you to have the absolute best chance of identifying one of these million-dollar coins if you're fortunate enough to encounter one. First, and most obviously, you need to check both sides of the coin carefully. A brockage error means you'll see Roosevelt's profile on what should be the reverse of the coin, but it will be mirror-imaged and incuse, meaning pressed into the surface rather than raised above it. And this creates a very distinctive appearance that's impossible to mistake once you know what you're looking for. Second, examine the clarity and depth of the brockage impression. The most valuable specimens have very deep, very clear impressions where every detail of Roosevelt's hair, the contours of his face, and even the lettering from Liberty can be clearly seen in the sunken mirror image. Because this indicates that the striking pressure was high and the struck coin that caused the brockage was perfectly positioned. Third, check the mint mark. You're specifically looking for a D below Roosevelt's profile on the normal side of the coin, indicating Denver mint production. And this mint mark should be clear and well-defined because these error coins were typically struck with good die pressure that produced sharp details. Fourth, assess the overall condition. Obviously, coins that show less wear, fewer scratches, and better preservation are worth more than damaged examples. And if you find what you think might be a brockage error dime that's also in uncirculated or near uncirculated condition, you might have won the absolute lottery. And fifth, look at the edges. Brockage errors can sometimes be accompanied by other minor errors like slight off-center striking or raised die clash marks. And these additional errors can actually increase value by making the coin even more unique and historically significant. The process of getting a suspected error coin authenticated is absolutely critical because the difference between a genuine 2003 brockage worth millions and a damaged coin worth 10 cents is everything. And trying to sell or represent a coin as an error without proper authentication from a recognized grading service like PCGS or NGC is not only futile because serious collectors won't buy it, but could actually get you in legal trouble if it's determined that you were making fraudulent claims. The authentication process typically involves submitting the coin to the grading service along with a service fee, usually a few $100s for error coins, which might sound expensive, but is absolutely nothing compared to the potential value if your coin is genuine, and the graders will examine it using high-powered microscopy, comparison with known genuine examples, weight and dimensional measurements, and various other tests to determine authenticity. And if it passes all these tests and is confirmed genuine, you'll receive it back in a sealed, tamper-evident holder with a certification label that makes the coin marketable to serious collectors and drastically increases its value. One of the most incredible aspects of the 2003 brockage Roosevelt Dime phenomenon is the number of real discovery stories that have emerged over the years since that first find in 2005, proving that these coins really are out there and really are being found by ordinary people living ordinary lives who just happen to pay attention at the right moment. There's the story of the high school student in California who found one in his mother's change purse while looking for lunch money in 2009. There's the retired teacher in Pennsylvania who discovered one while helping her daughter sort coins for a school project in 2011. There's the barista in Oregon who noticed one in her tip jar in 2014. And there's the truck driver in Texas who found one in the coin return of a highway rest stop vending machine in 2016. Every single one of these people had their lives transformed overnight, going from everyday financial concerns to sudden wealth that allowed them to pay off debts, buy homes, secure their retirement, help family members, and pursue dreams they'd thought were forever out of reach, all because of a 10-cent piece that most people would have spent without a second glance. And that brings me to the profound lesson that all three of these coins, the $67 million 2021 P, the $71 million 2015 P, and the $55 million 2003 D Roosevelt Dimes, teach us about value, attention, and opportunity in our lives. We live in a world that constantly tells us to think big, to chase after obvious wealth, to focus on flashy investments and grand schemes. But sometimes, maybe most of the time, real opportunity is hiding in plain sight, in the small things, the overlooked things, the ordinary objects and moments that we pass by every single day without really seeing them, without really appreciating their potential. These coins are a perfect metaphor for that truth. They're literally small change, the most mundane, forgettable denominations in our entire monetary system, and yet they harbor value that exceeds what most people will earn in their entire lifetimes, value that could erase financial stress, create generational wealth, and open doors that seemed permanently closed. So what should you do with this information? First and foremost, start paying attention to your change. I mean really looking at it, not just glancing at it to count it, but actually examining individual coins, especially Roosevelt Dimes from the years we've discussed, but honestly, any Roosevelt Dimes, because errors can and do occur across all years and mint marks. Get yourself a basic magnifying glass. They're inexpensive and readily available, and use it to examine coins that look unusual or off in any way, checking for the specific error types we've discussed: off-center strikes, multiple die strikes, brockage errors, wrong planchet errors, die cracks, rotation errors, and any other anomalies that catch your eye. Second, save your dimes. I know that sounds almost silly when we're talking about 10-cent pieces, but given what we now know about the potential values hiding in Roosevelt Dimes specifically, the smartest move you can make is to pull every single dime you encounter out of circulation and into a collection where you can examine it carefully at your leisure, because even if you don't find one of these ultra-rare error coins, you're still building a collection that has its face value at minimum and could contain other valuable varieties that you'll discover as you learn more about coin collecting. Third, educate yourself further. This video has given you a foundation, but there's an entire world of numismatic knowledge out there in books, websites, forums, and videos that can teach you to recognize not just the three errors we've focused on today, but dozens of other valuable varieties and errors across all denominations and years. Knowledge that will serve you well whether you're searching for coins worth millions or just trying to build an interesting hobby collection. And finally, spread the word. Share this information with friends, family, and anyone who will listen, because the more people who are aware of these valuable coins and actively searching for them, the more discoveries will be made, the more lives will be changed, and the more these incredible stories of ordinary people finding extraordinary wealth will continue to inspire and amaze us. As we close out this journey through three of the most valuable Roosevelt Dimes in existence, I want you to remember that right now, at this very moment, as you finish listening to these words, there are probably multiple specimens of these coins still circulating somewhere in America, passing from hand to hand, register to register, completely unrecognized and unappreciated, waiting for that one person who knows what to look for to finally spot them and unlock the life-changing value they represent. And maybe, just maybe, that person will be you if you commit to actually examining your change instead of just spending it mindlessly. Because fortune, as they say, favors not just the bold but the observant, the patient, the ones who understand that sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in the places we least expect to find them, in the pocket change we use every day without a second thought, And isn't that just the most beautiful and hopeful message we could take away from all of this? The world is full of hidden value, hidden opportunity, hidden possibility, and all we have to do is slow down, pay attention, and look for it. Really look with eyes that are open to seeing the extraordinary within the ordinary. And when we do that, when we cultivate that awareness and apply it not just to coin collecting, but to every area of our lives, we open ourselves up to discoveries and opportunities that can truly transform everything.